Can you start at the beginning of your story? So you got paid in Bitcoin. It was like 7,000 something Bitcoins, which at the time was worth what? And then what ended up happening? Like, when did you remember you had them, and like what linearly occurred?
Yeah. So when I first found out about it, it really was a very small community. And so one of the things that everyone was very concerned about is like, well, for this to work, people have to actually know it exists. And so how do we kind of explain it to people? And that caused people to pool some money together and say, let's make an animated video. Anyone who can make an animated video, you're going to win this amount of Bitcoin. And honestly, like at the time, Bitcoin didn't even really have like an exchange rate. So like you couldn't just convert between Bitcoin and dollars. I mean, you could sort of look at, oh, somebody just bought a pizza or two pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. Like, okay, a Bitcoin must be worth like, 1/100th of a cent or something like that. But there wasn't like an established price in that era. And then later on, when we actually, I teamed up with a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Fabian Rühle, and we made the video and we put it out there, and, people liked it a lot. And so we ended up getting that bounty. And so by the time we got it was, I think it was like February or March 2011. And by that time, there were exchanges, or one big one, mostly Mt. Gox. And there was an established Bitcoin price, and it was roughly 1-to-1, so $1, 1 Bitcoin roughly.
And then when did you? And then you got paid, and then you just forgot about it, and you were working on your own stuff.
Yeah. So again, like my interest in Bitcoin wasn't to make a lot of money, or, my interest was I had experienced a lot of problems with payments, and I felt like this was an opportunity to make it better. And so at the time, in order to use Bitcoin, you had to download the Bitcoin software, and then you had to run it for several days, and it would your computer would work really hard and get really hot during those several days. And it wasn't a very good user experience, basically. And so I decided, I'm a software engineer, I can help improve that. And so I worked on a way to use Bitcoin in your browser. So you don't have to download any scary files. You can just run it, go to a website and use it that way, while still maintaining your own keys. Now, I'm throwing out a lot of jargon here. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, basically I wanted to contribute as a developer. And that sort of consumed all my attention. I was just the example I like to give is I would literally wake up and look in the mirror, and it was my keyboard was imprinted on my face because I had fallen asleep on top of it. So I was not thinking about the wallet so much. I was thinking about how can I write the software, and it was just fascinating to me how it all worked. And yeah. Right.
And the wallet is where it's kept, and the key is your personal your personal, this is how people pay you, your personal identification?
Yeah. So the way that these cryptocurrencies work is it's essentially imagine if we all got together, and instead of a bank recording transactions, I paid you, so now your balance goes down and my balance and your balance goes up. Instead of that, we all keep a ledger. So we all keep a copy of that ledger, and we just make sure that they're somehow in sync. They're not gonna every transaction is recorded by everyone in the group. Well, how would we know that anyone owns any particular account? Well, they'd have to identify themselves somehow. And that's where Bitcoin uses cryptography. So in cryptography, in asymmetric cryptography, you have what's called a key. So it's kind of a secret number that only you know. It's like a password. And so you go and you say hey, here's the Bitcoins I want to spend, here's my secret number, and then everyone lets you record that transaction. And so that's how you actually own the Bitcoin, is because you know that secret number and nobody else does. And so in my case, I had a secret number that corresponded to the Bitcoins that we had won through that bounty. And through a long chain of events of making several backups and them all failing when I needed them, I ended up losing access to that particular number. And so as a result, I could no longer spend those Bitcoins.
When did you start trying to get into the wallet?
So I had... you actually tapped into the wallet already once or twice. And then the next time was in I think it was July, August, thereabouts, 2011. And there was this service in the Bitcoin community, which was like a website you could go to and you could push a button and it would just send like 1/100th of a Bitcoin or something like that. So you could test it and play with it. And that service obviously was dependent on donations and contributions from the community. And so Gavin Andreessen, who is the head of the Bitcoin project and was running that service, he reached out one day. He said like, hey, you have that wallet. Do you want to contribute some Bitcoins to the faucet? This is the website's name. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to contribute to it. And then I went to try to log into the wallet, open up the wallet, and I realized that the copy that I was using day to day was no longer working. And so then I was like, no problem, I have backups. And so I tried to access the backups and I wasn't able to access those either. So that's really when it sunk in that I might have lost access.